Today, we are taking a deep dive into one of the most mysterious, poetic, and frankly dangerous texts in mystical history. It's called the Tawasin, written by the 10th century Sufi master Mansoor Al-Hallaj. It's short, it's intense, and it's basically a radical roadmap to the spiritual path. Let's break it down.
So, this is what we're looking at. A slim little book written over 1,000 years ago. Now, its author, Al-Hallaj, was a hugely controversial figure. He was a poet, a mystic, and his words were considered so revolutionary, so dangerous, they actually got him executed. This book? This is a window into a mind that saw reality in a way almost no one else ever has.
Before we even get into the weeds, Hallaj wants us to wrap our heads around one central question. What if true knowledge isn't something you can just observe from a distance? What if, to really know something, you have to be completely consumed by it, to let it totally dissolve you? Keep that idea in your back pocket, because it is the key to everything else we're about to talk about.
All right, so where does a journey like this even begin? Well, not with a bunch of rules or complicated doctrines. It starts with an image. It starts with a light. Hallaj calls it the prophetic lamp, and it's the beacon that first calls the seeker to step onto the path.
I mean, Hallaj just sets the stage so beautifully here. This lamp, this brilliant light that outshines everything else. For him, this is the Prophet Muhammad. He's not just a historical figure in this vision. He's this kind of primordial light, the perfect spiritual guide who invites all of us toward the divine. It's this warm, radiant image to kick off what's going to be a pretty perilous journey. And that light leads us straight to the central metaphor of the entire book. If the lamp is the invitation, then the story of the moth and the flame is the journey. This is Hallaj's incredible allegory for the soul, for the spiritual seeker, being pulled irresistibly toward ultimate reality.
You can think of the moth as, well, any of us on a search for some kind of deep truth. It circles the flame, totally captivated. But it doesn't just want to see the light, it wants to understand it, to feel it, to completely unite with it. This is a story about that raw, primal desire for something absolute.
So, Hallaj breaks this quest down into 3 clear stages of knowing. First up, you've got hearsay. That's seeing the light from a distance. It's intellectual knowledge, right? Like reading about fire in a book. Then, you get closer and you feel the heat. That's vision. Now we're talking direct experience. You're getting a real taste of it. But the final stage? That's union. That's becoming the flame itself. And here is where it gets really radical. The journey doesn't end with a neat little understanding. It ends in annihilation. The moth dives right into the fire and is just gone. It's completely consumed. But in losing itself, it finds its true reality. This is the core Sufi idea of fana, where the self just dissolves into the divine.
But here's the thing. Leaping into that flame, it's not that simple. It's not like you can just jump in. No, the path to the flame is described as this vast, brutal desert filled with all kinds of trials and ordeals that are meant to purify the seeker. Hallaj actually maps out this spiritual desert. He gives us what he calls the 40 stations. You can think of them as 40 different psychological and spiritual states that the traveler has to pass through. And every single one is a test, it's an ordeal, and it's a lesson. And listen, these stations are not all sunshine and rainbows. The path includes pure exhaustion, deep confusion, intense, back-breaking labor, and a profound sense of being utterly alone. Hallaj is being brutally honest here. This is not an easy trip. It's going to demand everything you have.
And check this out. Hallaj even gives us a diagram to show just how tricky this can be. It's his circle of truth. See, the seeker enters, trying to get to the center point, which is truth itself. But the paths are a maze. They just send you right back where you started. He says the middle point is pure bewilderment. The whole point is to show that your intellect alone, your rational mind, it can't get there. It just gets stuck running in circles.
Okay, so now we get to the most radical, the most dangerous, the most mind-bending part of the whole book. Hallaj takes the figure of Iblis, who you probably know as Satan, and he completely flips the script on his story. He reframes it not as an act of rebellion, but as the ultimate tragic test of faith.
So Hallaj sets up this incredible side-by-side comparison. God commands Iblis, bow down before Adam, and Iblis refuses, flat out. Then God commands Muhammad, look at the divine vision, and Muhammad obeys perfectly, his eye does not swerve. For Hallaj, both of them are defined by their absolute response to a divine test, even though those responses send them in totally opposite directions.
And here is the bombshell. This is what Hallaj imagines Iblis saying to God. His refusal to bow wasn't arrogance against God. No, he claims it was the highest form of devotion. He's basically saying to bow to anyone or anything other than you, even if you tell me to, would be a betrayal of your oneness. There is no path for me to anything other than you. I mean, what a shocking defense.
So in this telling, Iblis becomes this tragic hero almost. A lover so intensely devoted to the absolute oneness of God that he's willing to accept eternal damnation rather than compromise that core principle for even a second. The lesson here is that the deepest loyalty is to the truth itself, above all else. And you can see why this was such an explosive, dangerous idea at the time.
So after you make it through the desert, after you survive these impossible tests of faith, you finally get to the end of the journey. But what is this destination really? Hallaj calls it the ocean of understanding. Remember our moth from the beginning? Well, this is it. This is that final moment. The seeker, having proven their absolute devotion, doesn't just look at the ocean. They don't just drink from it. They fall in, and they are drowned. The individual self, the I that started this whole journey, it's gone. It's completely dissolved. There's no observer anymore. There's only the ocean.
And this all culminates in one of the most famous, most breathtaking passages in all of mystical writing. It's the final conversation. The seeker looks at the divine with the eye of the heart and asks, "Who are you?" And the answer that comes back is simply, "You." In that moment of union, the distinction is just gone. The seeker and the sought are one and the same.
And that brings us full circle. Hallaj's most infamous statement, Al-Hallaj, I am the truth, well, it's the only possible thing to say at the end of this journey. He wasn't claiming to be God as a person. It was a statement from that drowned state where only the ocean is left to speak. He believed his life and his words were a sign pointing back to God. The authorities, they saw it as the ultimate crime. And the question that leaves for us 1,000 years later is, what do you do with a truth so overwhelming that it becomes inseparable from the person who says it, even if it costs them their life?